We touched on this stuff yesterday, but I'll quickly go through it again. In merchandising, inventory is king. Okay, you need to buy inventory and turn around and sell it. You look at inventory at its cost, and that's what this whole next section talks about. The 4 what are called cost flow assumptions are listed there. The 3 that the book really hones in on are FIFO, LIFO, and average. We'll just visit about specific identification. You're going to need to know more of the vocabulary that goes with it versus the how-to piece. We talked about this yesterday as well. Okay, this TV company bought 3 identical TVs. One cost $700. A month later, they bought another one that cost $750, and 1 month later yet, they bought another one for $800. Okay, so very much in a time of rising prices from an economic standpoint. When we go to sell them, the customers have no idea about the background story of the $750, and $800. They have no idea. They're just buying a TV. It's just how do we approach from a cost perspective what that TV cost. Okay, and so then this is where the book outlines this picture. Okay, so if Crivet sold the TVs that were purchased on February 3rd, which was the $700 one, and they sold the May 22nd one, that was the $800 one, our ending inventory would be sitting there valued at $750, the one that we bought in March. Do these people really care what we paid for it? No, they just know they're spending $1,200 on a TV. Specific identification is pretty rare. Okay, it works better for businesses that have big, like physically large inventory. This wouldn't work at a hardware store with a cubby full of nuts and bolts. Okay, because if you buy more, you're just going to dump them in, and okay. I'd say specific identification probably works best for like a car dealership. We talked about that a little bit yesterday. Meaning all those vehicles on the Heartland lot, they know exactly how many black trucks they have and when they purchased them and how much they were. So we're talking big, physically large inventory sitting there, and when one sells, they know how much they paid for it. Okay, so what I need you to know is specific identification. When something goes out the door, we know exactly how much we paid for it. And that's really what it boils down to. And with this bullet point, it's pretty rare. So that's one of the 4, but that's all I'm going to talk about with that 4. Here's one of the videos that you're going to watch tomorrow. I think, oh, I don't mean to play it. I think this is directly tied to our book. It's mentioning Wiley, so that's awesome. I found a whole channel of these, so that's exciting. So that'll come tomorrow. Let's start talking about the other 3. Remember, there's 4 costing methods. We're going to talk about 3. FIFO is an acronym for first in, first out. I want you to think, put in your mind strawberries. With the February, March, May example. Is it going to work for Willys in May to sell strawberries that they bought in February? Not at all. Okay. It's where you're selling the stuff that came in a long time ago first. So the first stuff that came in, the first stuff that you stocked on your shelves is actually the first stuff that you're going to encourage your customers to grab. Rotational inventory, like when you restock shelves and you bring your oldest up to the front of the shelves, you force your customers to grab the first stuff that came in as they shop. And then and even if it's more of a shelf life based food like a box of pasta or a can of corn, we still want to rotate that because they have an expiration date. So you want your oldest stuff, the first stuff that came in, to be the first that goes out for a freshness factor. Okay. But when I start talking about these three things, FIFO, LIFO, and weighted average, I don't want you to think of the product. I just list strawberries because we can visualize moldy strawberries, and that's disgusting. Who would want to buy those? Okay. I'm not talking the strawberries. I'm talking about what did we buy those strawberries for? What did we buy those strawberries for? We're going to know what we sold them for, but we're trying to get a value on the inventory that's left. So we've got the inventory. I'm going to just cross that off. We're selling that for a dollar amount, but we're trying to figure out the cost of what was sold and what is still here. What you need to know about FIFO is what I just highlighted there. FIFO out of FIFO, LIFO, and average, so the costing options, parallels physical flow the best. You know, even like a store, they're going to have their oldest stuff out on the floor because they want to get rid of it. Okay? A shirt doesn't go bad, but don't you want to sell the shirts and then sell and make room for more? You want to sell your old stuff, but remember this whole concept isn't about selling the stuff. It's selling, or it's figuring out the cost of the stuff that's sold and the cost of the stuff that's still here. But out of FIFO, LIFO, and weighted average, this is the most natural. Like, it's natural to sell your old stuff to make room for new stuff. So let's just take a look at a year's worth of occurrences. You probably don't have this in your notes. No. So on January 1, we had stuff on the shelves, 100 to be exact. On April 15th, we bought more. On August 24th, we bought more. And in November, we bought more. We happen to be buying more every time, but tell me about the cost. Was the cost going up throughout the year? Okay. So the stuff that we had on our shelves, the beginning of the year, 100 times 10, we haven't even sold a thing yet, but we know that what we had on January 1 cost us $1,000 to have on those shelves. So in our whole year, we had 1,000 things to sell for a grand total cost of $12,000. We haven't sold them yet, but we're just talking inventory on our shelves. They're telling us that at the end, someone counted, weighed, or measured to figure out of that 1,000 that we had available to sell, ending inventory, or what I'm going to name shush, which is what's considered still here, was 450. Because we don't necessarily know this number. I'm going to just cross that off for a minute. We know we bought $1,000 worth of things. I can count and see that we have 450 left. So then when you subtract that, you can figure out how many actually sold. These are out the door. They sold. At this point, we know how many sold and we know how many are still here, like counting wise, but what we're trying to get at is how much is this stuff costing us? How much did the stuff that left cost us, and how much is the stuff that's still here costing us? And that's where we employ, are we going to look at this from a FIFO perspective, a LIFO perspective, or weighted average? And what we're using in this first round is FIFO. So with FIFO, We are selling the oldest stuff. The newest stuff is shush, or still here, which is more formally called our ending inventory. Strawberries are a terrible example at this point, but you can visualize the mold. Don't you think I better be selling the January 1st strawberries first? Because by November 27th, they're going to look terrible. So we've got to be selling our oldest stuff first. Okay? So as we try to figure out the cost of our ending inventory and the cost of our goods that are gone, we've got to run a little bit of math. Because yeah, we know the stuff, we bought 1,000 and we've got to figure out how much all that costs. So which ones are shush or still here? And let's go back. I think we're using 450 as our number, okay? If we sold the oldest, which ones are still here? Which purchase? If the oldest ones are gone, are the newest ones still here? Okay, so please plug this in. You have this at the top of your notes, correct? I know it's a small space. So if the oldest are sold, that's what FIFO is, the oldest are gone, the newest are still here. We're going to take a look at, on November 27th, we had 400 things times the $13 that we paid for them, $5,200. Are we up to 450 yet? Because remember, 450 is the ending inventory. Are we up to 450 yet? We're close. So why don't we actually do this? This isn't on this page. 450 is what's shush or still here. So then we sold 550. We first need to figure out what's still here. Okay, so that's where I took the newest stuff, because the oldest stuff is gone with FIFO. The first in is gone. How much of our August 24th purchase are we going to account for? How many are still here, according to what we wrote right here? 450. We've already accounted for 400. Now it's a time to account for that last 50. Times the $12 that we spent to get them here equals 600. So let me just reiterate, with FIFO, we're selling the oldest stuff. The newest stuff is still here. So now let's figure out how much the cost of our inventory that's still sitting on the shelves is. 450 units is going to cost us $5,800 to have it still sitting on the shelves. This is the shush. In a FIFO example, this is the newest, because the newest is still here in FIFO. The oldest stuff is gone. So the cost of what's still sitting on our shelves is $5,800. Now we have to figure out the cost of what's gone. What did we sell? We sold the newest stuff, but this is pretty easy to take into consideration. This math problem over here says the cost of goods available for sale. That was overall. How much did we have for the whole year? Well, we bought $12,000 worth of stuff minus what was shush, or still here, stuff that didn't sell, equals our total cost of goods sold. This is the S side of things. And remember, with FIFO, the oldest is what's sold. The newest is what is still here. Did we sell our cheap stuff or our expensive stuff with FIFO? We sold the cheap stuff. We were in a time of rising prices. The prices went up. 10 to 11, 11 to 12, prices went up. And so we got rid of our cheap stuff, and we still are sitting on expensive stuff. Down here, these three factors are very important. You grab cost of goods available for sale minus what happened right here equals cost of goods sold. Let's try LIFO. Oh, one more visual. That's right. Okay. So these were, this is gone on the truck in the customer's hands. So the stuff that's sold, this is what's still here in the warehouse or on our shelves. Here's the costing breakdown. This was 100 units. I'm going to go back a minute. 200 units. 400 units, 50, and 250. Okay. We sold 550 units. That's what those equal. And what's still here was the 450. It's another way of looking at all the numbers. What's gone in the customer's hands and what's still here. I like this helpful hint. I'm not going to talk LISH like they do, but another way of thinking about figuring out FIFO is LISH. The last in, or the newest stuff, still here. All of this is going to be reversed when I talk about FIFO. Let's talk FIFO first. The last stuff in, or opposite of what we just did, the newest, is sold. The oldest stuff is still here. Moldy strawberries, if you will, are going to be sitting on our shelves. We're going to sell the fresh stuff just coming off the truck, and we're not going to care about the old stuff. They're going to be molding on the shelves. Okay. My best visual here are those giant corn piles you see, or the beet piles, like when you go by a beet plant. Okay, can you even get at the stuff in the bottom? No, you're going to be grabbing from the top. The stuff that we just dumped onto the pile is the only stuff you can access. Down here, it's going to be a while before we touch that. Okay. From a costing perspective, we're going to figure out the cost based on what we sold most recently, and that's the new stuff that we just got on our shelves. Okay. Again, we're going to analyze these same numbers. We're going to buy 1,000 things. It's going to cost, our total cost will be 12. The stuff that's still here is 450. The stuff that's sold is going to be 500. So let's do that same thing one more time. Let's still do minus 450 is what is still here, equals 550 is what sold. But remember, with LIFO, we're selling the newest stuff. Down here is the shush side. Over here is the sold side. If we are analyzing the same amount of sales, same amount of 550 is what we sold, but we're selling the new stuff, what's shush? What's still here? The old stuff. We still want to get this number to 450. We're going to force that to get to 450. We sold the new stuff. The old stuff is still old and still collecting dust. So that's where we'll run that January 1 of $100 times the 10 bucks we paid for it. Because remember, we're trying to figure out the cost of shush and the cost of what's sold. You first have to calculate what's still here, and then you can figure out what's sold. Is 100 close to 450? No, we're going to go on to our next. So I could even like check that off. We did that. Are we going to use all of this 200 to get to 450? Yes, we are. Are we going to use all of August 24th though? We're only going to use 150 of it because remember, we know that 450 is still here. So out of that August 24th purchase, we're only going to use 150 of the 300. Half of that sold because remember, we're selling our newest stuff. We're selling our newest stuff, not our oldest stuff. Our oldest stuff's still here. So when you calc that out, this cost is $5,000. On this side, you bring that 12,000 down. Cost of it, the whole cost of everything we had available for sale was 12, minus the 5,000 that's still here, which will of course yield $7,000 of cost of goods sold. Hold the show. I see a big difference from FIFO and LIFO. What's the cost of what we sold if we sell the expensive stuff? $7,000. To get that stuff out of the door, it costs us $7,000. If we go back to FIFO a minute, that was $800 cheaper. Why? Why is, in this case, FIFO so much better for net income? Which cost of goods sold was bigger? The one we just did. That was $7,000. This one was only $6,200. Why? What were we selling on this one? The expensive stuff or the cheap stuff? The cheaper stuff. We're accounting for the early purchases, the old purchases, and those were cheaper. So a question that will come up on a test will be this. In times of rising prices, which we've got going on here, these are rising prices. In times of rising prices, which will yield a better net income if you're running FIFO or LIFO? That's a pretty loaded question because net income is nowhere to be talked about here. In times of rising prices, you want to try to get, this is like expenses cousin if you remember. So the lower this can be, the better the net income. Because if I'm selling my expensive stuff and it's going to cost me, where did it go? $7,000 to sell basically the same stuff. That's not going to make for a real good net income because I have $800 more that it costs me to even sell the stuff. So in times of rising prices, FIFO, in other words, you're selling the cheaper stuff, will make for a healthier net income. Because that cost is lower. We're selling cheaper stuff. Right. What if you want to make it look like you're not making much money? Well, then in times of rising prices, run with LIFO. You're selling the more expensive stuff. I'm in the middle of a college accounting lecture, so I can't visit. And it's recorded. So, hi. One more look, okay? Remember, this is the stuff that's still here. This is the stuff that's gone on the truck or in the customer's bags. It's still the same breakdown. We still sold 550 and 450 is still here. Okay, remember this was the 100 units, this was the 200 units. Down here was 1, 2, 3, 400 units. But then remember on that August purchase or whatever, half of it's still here and half of it's gone. But remember, we're not talking about the stuff that's still here or gone. It's a factor because it's contributing to what we sold and what's gone and what's still here. But what is the stuff costing that's gone or costing that's still here? Because that's what matters with the bottom line, what we just talked about. How does this impact net income? If we're selling our cheap stuff, net income is going to be bigger because it doesn't cost as much. Or if we're selling the expensive stuff, net income will be smaller because it did cost more. Now imagine, we're just talking 400 or 500 units. Imagine millions of dollars worth of stuff. And whoever is in charge of that at a job has a big job. One more. This one's the easy one. Average costs says, who cares which one you're selling? Let's take a look at all of the stuff that the cost of our stuff, and just average it. And I would best describe this as the gas tanks that are underneath the pumps at a convenience store. When the big tanker truck rolls in and, plugs all their hoses in and funnels more gas down into the underneath vessels, is it layered like here's what we delivered on January 1st, and then like puts a little layer there, and here's our next layer, and here's our next layer? No, it goes into a big, it's liquid. It all mixes together. And yeah, you can think of it as I'm buying this or I'm selling that, but really it all just goes together. And so again, one more time, these 1,000 units minus what's shush equals what we sold. But if we take a look at weighted average, it's a little different. So here we go. One more time. 450 that's still here equals 550 that's sold. If you're doing weighted average, it's just so simple. You take, remember this is the cost. We're trying to figure out the cost of shush and the cost of what's sold, gone. And then instead of saying, well, what did we do in January? What did we do in, we're not selling necessarily, we're selling stuff. It's just what cost are we going to attach to it? And if you look at averaging it out, you just say, what did we spend divided by how many? So what was our total cost divided by our number of units? So on average, we're looking at a $12 cost. Well, 450 times 12, on average, the cost that's still here is $5,400. Who cares if it's the old price? Who cares if it's the new price? On average, we're spending about $12 in this case. And then you just do the same cost of goods available for sale, $12,000, minus the ending inventory, or what we did over here. Ending inventory means shush, what's still here, what didn't sell, equals a split. It's not 7,000, but it's not 6,200. LIFO and FIFO, they're pretty extreme. This is a more meet in the middle kind of number. I love the last thing that the chapter provides, and I provided it for you too. Let's talk this though first. Again, this seems to be liquid. I would just equivalent this to liquid. They're not saying that breakdown, if you will. They're just saying all this got dumped into one tank. I don't know what we're selling, if we're selling the old stuff or new stuff, but I do know if we paid $12,000 for it and there's 1,000 gallons or 1,000 units or whatever in here, I'm spending $12 a unit. The stuff that's still here is definitely still here. The stuff that is sold, just we're using that $12 per unit instead of as the prices went up or down. Here's the thing I wanted to talk about. Now this looks complicated, but what I want you to do is circle or highlight this. This tells the story of in times of rising prices, how does net income factor in, okay? No matter what, our revenue brought in is $18.5. Where did that number come from? The book must have all the numbers calculated out, okay? It's taking into account what we started with plus what we purchased to equal this $12,000. That's the cost of goods available for sale. This is a multi-step income statement. It's not simply your revenue minus expenses equal net income. We've got a lot of factors here, okay? Then we say, all right, what's left? Now take a look at FIFO, LIFO, and average. FIFO, we're selling the oldest stuff, and in this case, the cheapest. In LIFO, we're selling the newest stuff, and in this case, because we had rising prices, the more expensive stuff. An average is just an average of it all. So if we look at our bottom line, when we're selling the oldest, cheapest stuff, we have a higher net income. When we're selling, in this case, the more expensive one, we have a much smaller net income. And of course, average is a split between expensive and cheap. Now this is all in times of rising prices. What if prices had dropped? Instead of prices going up throughout the year, they were going down. We were maybe in a recession. Would it all be flipped? Would FIFO be, or excuse me, LIFO be more of the moneymaker? Yeah, because then we're selling the cheaper stuff if prices are going down. Is your head spinning? A little bit? The biggest thing is be consistent. If a business sits down and says, we're going to follow FIFO, we're going to sell our oldest stuff first, no matter what. And then if some economic huge shift happens, maybe the higher up say, well, let's revisit this. Now, again, lesson that I want you to walk out of here today with is it's not necessarily the stuff we're selling, it's putting a value on the cost of what's still here and the cost that is gone, okay? When I was at Subway over Christmas break, I, in a very stalker way, noticed a sign in their back room. And it said, FIFO. They want to use their oldest products first to keep their customers happy. And that makes sense. I don't want brown lettuce. And it said, FIFO. I wonder if they know what that means. Thank you, guys.